in the sun-drenched valleys of Persia, where the mountains kissed the clouds and the rivers sang through orchards of apricot and pomegranate, there lived a young sculptor named Farhad. His hands, strong and precise, could coax beauty from cold, unyielding stone. Yet, despite the admiration of the villagers for his skill, Farhad's heart remained untouched by joy. For all his talent, he carried a secret flame within him, one that belonged to a princess he had never spoken to but had long adored from afar. Shirin was a woman of rare beauty, the daughter of a wealthy and noble family who ruled their region with wisdom and kindness. Her hair, the color of midnight, framed a face that held both innocence and quiet strength. Eyes the shade of melted emeralds reflected a mind that was clever and a heart that was generous. Farhad had first seen her as a boy when she had come to the village with her retinue. In that fleeting moment, as she smiled at the children playing near the river, Farhad felt a strange stirring in his chest, a yearning that neither time nor distance could erase. As the years passed, Farhad's admiration for Shirin grew into a love so profound that it became the center of his life. He would wake before dawn, walk to the highest cliffs where sunlight struck the stone with golden intensity, and carve statues inspired by her form, each curve of marble and chisel mark echoing his longing. He never dared show these works to anyone, for they were born of a love too sacred and personal to share. Farhad's life was simple, filled with labor, solitude, and silent devotion. Yet the village whispered of his genius and the sorrow in his eyes. Some said he was cursed, doomed to toil endlessly for something unattainable. Others whispered tales of a hidden romance, though none dared to approach the truth. Farhad himself neither confirmed nor denied these tales. He simply returned to his work, his hands shaping dreams from stone. One morning, as the golden sun touched the peaks of the mountains, a messenger arrived at the village carrying a royal decree. The king, Shirin's father, had decided to build a new palace for his daughter, a palace that would reflect both the grandeur of the kingdom and the refinement of her spirit. The finest architects and builders were summoned from across Persia, and the finest artisans were sought to contribute their skill. Among them, Farhad's name was spoken, though he himself knew nothing of this honor, until the messenger found him at the cliffside, chiseling away at a block of marble. "Farhad," the messenger said, bowing low, "Princess Shirin's father requests your presence. Your skill is needed for the construction of the royal palace. The king desires nothing less than perfection, and you, sir, are deemed capable of such greatness." Farhad's heart leapt and sank at the same time. The honor was immense, yet the thought of serving in the same place as Shirin, the object of his silent devotion, filled him with both fear and longing. Yet he could not refuse. Duty, pride, and the chance to see her, even from afar, compelled him to accept. Upon his arrival at the royal court, Farhad was overwhelmed. The palace grounds stretched as far as the eye could see, filled with fountains, gardens, and marble structures already in progress. Servants bustled about, carrying messages, water, and tools. Musicians played delicate melodies, and Shirin herself was present, walking among the gardens, her eyes catching the morning light as though she were made to hold it. When their eyes first met, it was a moment of quiet recognition. Farhad felt as though the world had stopped, the murmur of the court fading to a distant hum. Shirin's gaze lingered on him, curious and bright, as if she recognized the devotion written on his face, even though they had never spoken. Yet propriety and the distance of their worlds kept them apart. Farhad bowed deeply, offering a respectful greeting, while Shirin inclined her head, her expression gentle but unreadable. Farhad was assigned the task of carving the palace's most ambitious feature, a grand fountain of marble and precious stones, to stand at the center of the courtyard. Each day he worked tirelessly, often from dawn until dusk, his chisels striking stone with a rhythm that matched the beating of his heart. With each curve he sculpted, he imagined Shirin smiling, imagined her laughter echoing through the marble corridors. Though his love remained unspoken, it infused every stroke of his hand with a power that awed even the master architects who oversaw the project. But as Farhad's devotion grew, so did the weight of longing. He saw Shirin from afar, admired her from across the gardens, but could not approach her. Each smile from her made his heart both lighter and heavier, a paradox that he bore silently. He found himself wandering the gardens at night, tracing the paths she walked during the day, hoping for a glimpse of her in the moonlight. In those quiet hours, he whispered to the stars, confessing a love that could never be freely spoken, yet burned brighter than the sun above the mountains.
Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, yet Farhad's devotion to both his art and his love never wavered. The fountain at the center of the palace courtyard began to take shape under his relentless hands. Each stone he carved was more than marble. It was a testament to his longing, his patience, and the quiet, steady fire of love that burned inside him. Villagers who had heard of his summons to the palace often whispered that Farhad's heart had found its destiny. But little did they know, destiny, like stone, was never easily shaped. The king, Shirin's father, was a man both proud and cautious, keenly aware of the admiration that Farhad's talent inspired. Though he valued skill, he feared that emotions could interfere with duty. Farhad's devotion to Shirin had not gone unnoticed, and the king, protective of his daughter, decided to test the sculptor's loyalty and resolve. He summoned Farhad to the royal hall, where tapestries of kings past hung like silent witnesses. "Farhad," the king began, his voice steady and commanding, "I have observed your work. It is unmatched, precise and exquisite. Yet skill alone does not serve the crown. You are young and passionate. Tell me, would your heart allow you to complete a task impossible in both labor and patience?" Farhad bowed low, his mind steady, though a storm of anticipation and fear rose within him. "Your Majesty, I am ready to serve in any way you deem worthy. My hands and my heart are yours to command." The king studied him for a long moment, as though weighing both words and intention. "Then hear this. If you wish to win favor in this court, and perhaps the grace of my daughter, you must accomplish a task that no ordinary man could bear. There is a mountain beyond the northern cliffs, rich with rock that glows like the dawn when the first sunlight touches it. From that mountain, you must carve a channel to bring water to this palace, a stream flowing from the peaks to the fountain in the courtyard. Only then shall your dedication be proven. Fail, and you may never serve here again." The hall seemed to fall silent. The challenge was monumental. Men had attempted to quarry stone and redirect rivers before, and none had succeeded. Many had abandoned the task, their strength sapped, their spirits broken. Yet Farhad, though his heart trembled, accepted the challenge without hesitation. To refuse would be to betray not only the king, but the very devotion that guided him. As Farhad journeyed to the northern cliffs, word of his task spread throughout the palace and beyond. Shirin had heard of the king's decree, and her heart stirred in a way she could not name. She had watched Farhad from afar, noticing the quiet dignity with which he approached every task. Now the thought that he would risk everything for a seemingly impossible challenge awakened a deep admiration in her soul. She found herself longing for his safe return, unaware that his feelings were quietly mirrored by the very man whose life had been devoted to her image in marble. The mountain was treacherous. filled with jagged rocks, narrow passes, and cliffs that dropped like shattered glass into the valleys below. Yet Farhad pressed onward, his determination fueled by love and the memory of Shirin's smile. Days and nights blended as he labored, chiseling stone and digging channels, his hands blistered, his muscles aching. But even as exhaustion threatened to overtake him, he refused to relent. Each stone he moved, each channel he carved was a silent declaration of his devotion, a language beyond words, understood only by the heart. During one particularly grueling night, Farhad paused to rest upon a rocky ledge overlooking the valley below. The moon hung like a silver guardian above him, casting its gentle glow across the rugged terrain. He whispered into the wind, a prayer for strength and a confession of longing. "Shirin, if only you could know how my heart labors for you, how every stone I move is a step toward you, toward hope." Farhad's voice was carried away by the night air, unheard by all but the stars. Yet even in solitude, his love seemed to reach Shirin in ways neither could fully understand. Within the palace, Shirin often found herself gazing toward the mountains, imagining the sculptor's hands at work, imagining the toll the task must take, and feeling an inexplicable connection to the man whose devotion she had silently admired. Weeks passed, and Farhad's task began to take tangible form. Water, once locked within the mountain's heart, now trickled through the channels he had carved, reflecting the pale sunlight like liquid diamonds. Villagers and courtiers who ventured near the worksite were astonished, murmuring tales of a man whose dedication surpassed both legend and reason. Yet Farhad's joy was muted, for the task was far from complete. Every day brought new challenges, boulders too massive to move alone, rock faces that refused to yield, and the constant peril of the mountain itself. Still, he pressed on, driven by a love that was as enduring as the stone he shaped. Back at the palace, Shirin learned from the court scholars of Farhad's progress. A tender worry mingled with admiration in her heart. She wondered what drove him, what secret devotion could compel a man to endure such trials. She found herself writing letters she could not send, thoughts she could not voice aloud, and dreaming of the sculptor who had captured her fascination long before they ever spoke. And so the stage was set. Farhad against the impossible, a mountain against his hands, a king against his devotion, and love against the silent test of fate. The sculptor's journey had only begun, yet already the bonds of longing, admiration, and courage were weaving a story of destiny that neither he nor Shirin could escape. In every strike of his chisel, every drop of sweat that fell upon the mountain stone, Farhad carved not only the channel that would bring water to the palace, but the very essence of a love that would endure beyond trials, time, and tragedy.
The days had grown long and heavy on the northern cliffs. Farhad, tireless and unwavering, labored from dawn to dusk, the sun scorching his back and the wind tearing at his clothes. Each boulder he moved, each channel he carved, brought water closer to the palace, yet the task felt endless. The mountain, unyielding and indifferent, seemed almost alive in its resistance, testing the sculptor's spirit at every turn. Farhad's muscles ached, his hands bled, and his heart throbbed not only from fatigue, but from the longing that never ceased. Though Farhad's body was pushed to its limits, his determination never faltered. Every night he would rest beneath the stars, his mind filled with visions of Shirin's face. He imagined her walking in the palace gardens, her dress brushing the marble floors, her laughter echoing like music. He whispered to the night air, "I will bring the water, no matter how long it takes. I will carve my love into every stone until the mountain itself knows my devotion." But far below, not all were pleased with Farhad's success. News of his skill, devotion, and proximity to Shirin had reached the ears of jealous nobles and rivals who sought favor in the king's court. Whispers spread that Farhad's love was audacious, that a mere sculptor could never hope to capture the heart of a princess. Some even feared that if he succeeded, his closeness to Shirin might threaten their own ambitions. One such rival, a wealthy courtier named Bahram, devised a plan. Pretending to admire Farhad's dedication, he sent a message suggesting that the sculptor's task could be easier if he sought the help of magic waters hidden in a sacred spring atop the cliffs. No mortal alone could shape a channel through this mountain, Bahram wrote. Seek the spring, and your path will be blessed. Farhad, exhausted and unaware of the deceit, believed the letter to be guidance. His heart longed for progress, for the day he could finally see the water flow into the palace fountain. Without hesitation, he left the main work site, climbing higher into dangerous terrain in search of the spring. The mountain, already treacherous, became a labyrinth of sheer cliffs and hidden ravines. Hours stretched into days, yet he pressed on, driven by love and hope. Meanwhile, back at the palace, Shirin sensed a growing unease. She had heard that Farhad had ventured further into the mountains than anyone dared. A shadow of worry crossed her heart. Though she had never spoken to him directly, her concern was as deep and steady as his devotion. Farhad is brave, but the mountain does not yield to courage alone. I fear for him, yet I cannot intervene. His heart is mine to respect, even from afar. Farhad's search for the spring led him to a cliffside grotto, a hidden place where sunlight barely touched the stone floor. Inside, he found water trickling from cracks in the rock, pure and clear, glinting like crystal in the dim light. Hope surged in his chest. This must be it, he whispered. With this, the channel will flow, and the fountain will bloom, and then Shirin will see the devotion of my heart. Yet the mountain, cruel and capricious, had one final test. As Farhad bent to fill his vessel, a sudden landslide shook the grotto. Rocks tumbled, sending dust and debris into the air. Farhad barely managed to leap to safety, but the vessel shattered, spilling the precious water into the crevices below. Exhausted and wounded, he sank to his knees, the weight of despair pressing upon him. He felt the sting of betrayal, not only by the treacherous terrain, but by the message that had led him astray. Back at the palace, the king received reports of Farhad's delay. Concern for the sculptor grew, though pride prevented the monarch from showing it. Shirin, however, could not bear the thought of him suffering alone. She pleaded with her father, "Father, if Farhad labors in the mountains, he must not be left to face dangers alone. He serves with loyalty unmatched. Please, allow someone to aid him." The king, impressed by her compassion, hesitated. His mind, ever careful, feared the consequences. Yet Shirin's resolve was clear, and at last he agreed to send a small party to aid Farhad, ensuring his safety while maintaining the test of his devotion. Meanwhile, Farhad struggled to continue. He refused to return home in defeat. Each day he rose with the first light, moving stones, carving channels, and repairing the damage caused by the landslide. His body trembled, and yet his spirit endured. He told himself, "Love is stronger than stone, stronger than mountains. I will not fail Shirin nor my heart." In those moments of solitude, Farhad's thoughts often returned to Shirin. He imagined her gentle smile, the soft tilt of her head as she listened to music, the way her eyes seemed to hold both kindness and courage. His longing was a river of fire within him, relentless, beautiful, and painfully tender. Each blow of his chisel was a heartbeat, a pulse of devotion he could not contain in words. And though they remained apart, destiny began to draw their paths closer. Shirin, watching from the palace, and Farhad, laboring among the cliffs, were bound not only by the trials of circumstance, but by a love that neither time, treachery, or peril could extinguish. Yet even as hope flickered in their hearts, the mountain's burden and the shadows of jealousy threatened to shatter their dreams before they could fully bloom. The sculptor's journey was no longer only about stone and water. It had become a test of faith, resilience, and the enduring power of love. And as night fell on the cliffs, Farhad raised his eyes to the stars, whispering the one prayer that mattered above all. Shirin, I will endure. I will endure until the mountain itself surrenders to the devotion of my heart.
The mountain had grown crueler with each passing day. Farhad, exhausted from weeks of labor, now faced the final stretch of his task. The channel was nearly complete, yet one massive stone remained, a boulder that had resisted his chisel, seemingly mocking every ounce of his strength. Sweat and blood streaked his face, and his hands, raw and blistered, trembled as he raised his tools once more. The water must flow, the fountain must bloom, and his love for Shirin must be honored. Even as he worked, the shadows of doubt crept into his heart. Could a mere mortal overcome such a mountain? Could a sculptor's devotion, no matter how true, conquer the impossible? Each strike of the chisel was a battle, not only against stone, but against despair. Yet Farhad pressed on, whispering Shirin's name with every movement. Shirin, forgive me for my weakness, yet I will endure, for you, for love, for the promise of beauty yet unseen. Farhad's determination did not go unnoticed. From the palace, Shirin watched anxiously through the high vantage points. Her heart ached with a mixture of admiration and fear. She wished she could reach him, embrace him, and ease the weight of the impossible task. But the customs of the court, the expectations of her station, and the danger of the mountain kept her confined to her gilded world. She sent messages urging caution, but Farhad, steadfast and proud, ignored them. To him, returning without completing the channel would be a defeat greater than any physical wound. On the mountain, tragedy struck. As Farhad struck the final blow at the resistant boulder, the unstable cliff beneath him trembled. Rocks shifted, and in a heart-stopping moment, the stone he had fought to move fell, striking him. Pain seared through his body, and he fell, unable to rise. Farhad's vision blurred, but even in that moment, his thoughts turned to Shirin. He imagined her smile, her laughter, the way she had watched him from afar, and a quiet peace filled his heart. I have tried, I have loved, I have endured, he whispered. Back at the palace, the water finally flowed into the courtyard fountain, its sparkling stream reflecting the first rays of the sun. Shirin ran to the gardens, eager to witness the fruits of Farhad's devotion. She had hoped to see him emerge, triumphant and alive. Yet when the attendants reported that Farhad had not returned, dread took root in her heart. She pleaded with the king, her voice trembling, "Father, he may be hurt. We must find him." The search parties ventured to the cliffs, calling Farhad's name across the windswept mountains. And then they found him, his body weakened, his hands stained with the labor of endless devotion, yet his spirit unmistakably alive in the peace etched across his face. Shirin rushed to his side, tears streaming freely. She took his hand gently, her touch warm and reverent, as if offering both comfort and acknowledgement of his unwavering love. Farhad's eyes fluttered open, and though his body was frail, a faint smile touched his lips. "Shirin, the water, the fountain, it flows for you," he whispered. His voice was weak, yet filled with triumph. Shirin's heart broke and soared simultaneously. She knelt beside him, pressing her hand to his cheek. "You have given everything, everything for love," she said softly. "And I I have always known your heart." In the days that followed, Farhad recovered, though the mountain had left marks upon him that would never fully fade. The palace fountain became a symbol not only of beauty, but of devotion, perseverance, and the power of a love that refused to bend before impossible odds. Courtiers and villagers alike marveled at the artistry and the story behind it. Yet for Shirin and Farhad, the significance went beyond admiration. Every ripple of water, every glint of sunlight upon the marble was a testament to a love that had been tested, tried, and proven in the most extraordinary ways. Shirin and Farhad's bond deepened in the quiet moments that followed the ordeal. They walked together through the gardens, their hands occasionally brushing, their eyes communicating what words could never fully express. The princess, once a distant figure in Farhad's imagination, became the living embodiment of the devotion he had carried in his heart for so many years. And Farhad, once a solitary sculptor shaping stone in isolation, found that his love, though hard-won, had blossomed into a connection that touched both their souls. Yet, even in triumph, the story of their love retained a gentle melancholy. The mountain, the trials, and the near loss had reminded them both that love, no matter how beautiful, demanded sacrifice. They understood that longing and heartache were inseparable from passion and devotion. And so they cherished each moment, each glance, each quiet conversation with an awareness of fragility that made their love all the more profound. The palace fountain, sparkling in the sunlight, became the heart of the gardens, a living memory of the sculptor who had carved not only stone, but destiny. Visitors came to marvel at its beauty, unaware of the silent, enduring love that had made it possible. But for Shirin and Farhad, the fountain was more than art. It was proof that love could move mountains, endure trials, and survive even the harshest tests of fate. In the quiet evenings, as the sky blushed with the colors of sunset, Shirin and Farhad would sit side by side near the fountain. The gentle sound of flowing water reminded them of every trial, every sacrifice, every heartbeat of devotion. And in those moments, words were unnecessary. Their eyes, filled with understanding, gratitude, and unspoken promises, told a story of love so profound that no mountain, no stone, and no trial could ever diminish it. Thus, the legend of Shirin and Farhad endured, not merely as a tale of hardship, but as a testament to the power of unwavering love, the courage to endure impossible trials, and the beauty of devotion that rises, like water over stone, against all odds. And though the world around them would continue to change, their love remained eternal, flowing as freely and beautifully as the water in the fountain Farhad had carved for the woman who had held his heart all along.